Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me for the Canva masterclass. Now, the purpose of what we're going to be doing is to give you a really good overview of why you'd want to be doing it anyway and what applications might be useful for you as practitioners in your marketing. And I'm going to show you some tips and tricks that you can use. So let's just have a little look. So what and why, I'm going to show you or explain very briefly how to create an account for yourself, which is the first step. And to give you an idea of setting yourself up, what the key jobs are that you need to do right at the beginning. And don't worry if you've already got an account and you haven't done these, you can go back and do them at any time. We'll take a look at the different file sizes, what they are, and the kinds of applications you might use them for. There'll be a tour of the design functions and then a how-to, because really what I want from this is everybody comes away with a great concept and a great, you really have it in mind how to create a Facebook post for yourself, because it's quite straightforward. Like all these things, it's very straightforward and very logical once you've done it. Now, I know there are a number of people here who have spoken to me about not being confident with technology, and this really is drag and drop. So that literally means you get your mouse, you point it at something and you drop it where you want it. So after a few goes, it really will start to become second nature. So I'm going to take you through the elements of a Facebook post, how the different bits fit together and how you might be able to use that. So the reason why we're doing this screen share rather than just a straight webinar is you can see me in action. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I am a great designer. I'm not going to pretend I have all this sorted, because every time I go in to look at, for example, for today, I went in to say, okay, well, what are we going to do today? And I can see that Canva has brought out some more stuff. It's changed some things, slightly for the better actually, but things change all the time. So when this gets saved onto the resource center, you'll be able to go back and look at it as a bit of a step-by-step so you can create your own Facebook posts. We'll also look at banners, because there are some tips and tricks. Exactly the same tools go on, exactly the same drag and drop, but I'll take you through the anatomy of a banner and also a flyer, because some of you might get so confident with your Facebook posts and your Facebook banners that you might want to have a go at a flyer. And there's a few tips and tricks, perhaps slightly more advanced, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because they will be useful once you've just got over the starting out with Canva. So as I mentioned right at the very beginning before we started recording this, there is a webinar chat function, and I will invite you at different points of the webinar to ask questions. Now, there's some content that I just want to get out there and show you some stuff and show you it in action working, and then there'll come a point where I'll just say, is there anything that's unclear? Is there anything that you don't feel has been answered that you would want answered? And then I will invite you to perhaps type that in the chat box, and I will make you a panelist if I need to have a conversation with you about it. Right, so I want to take you through, in fact, let me just start up another screen, because I want to take you through how to sign in for Canva. I've obviously got an account, but I want to explain how easy it is. I mean, simply you would go to canva.com and you would add your details in. You would create a username, which would be your email address, and a password. Canva would send you an email to confirm your email address, and then you're pretty much good to go. Now, the very first thing, if you're totally new to Canva, that's going to happen when you create your account is they're going to, in fact, you won't be able to get any further until you've done this. There's a 63-second introductory video which will invite you to colour the monkey, put a hat on the monkey, and make a really, really super basic design for yourself. Now, it's not going to help you enormously, but it's worth doing that just to get you started. Now, Canva is, let me just explain why Canva is going to be helpful for you. If you were at the Business Development Day, you will know that 2018 and what we at Zest want for you in 2018 is to be able to really take hold of your business and use the marketing materials that we've got to drive your business forward and to encourage people to engage with you, increasing your presence on Facebook, and also ultimately to book discovery calls or whatever you call them, and from there get more clients. So this is what we have in mind, and one of the ways that we want to do this is by supporting you in your marketing efforts. Now, there are a number of different Canva-like companies that will make this kind of Facebook posting and flyers and other types of social media posting quite easy. Now, Canva is one of the easiest ones to use. I'm sure there are others, but I'm going to show you how this works. Now, why you'd want to do it is we are often saying that what we need to be doing with Facebook is having lots of engagement and lots of posts. It used to be okay just to put some words on Facebook. That hasn't been good enough for quite a long time now. You need to have an image, and ideally not just a stock image. The benefit of creating something in Canva is you can add your own branding to it. We will talk about branding in a second, but you will find that it's very easy to set up posts that are exactly the right shape for Facebook, and you can put on exactly what you want to say, so you have a very cohesive feel through all your marketing. If you're on Twitter, I know not very many of you are, or Instagram, there are also different options for creating different sized marketing. As you get more confident, there's lots more that you can do. In fact, let's just have a look. You can use up here, you can use your own custom dimensions, which means whatever you want. There is something that I will be showing you where you'll want to do that. We've also got a presentation. So if I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation, for example, to a corporate client or for a talk, I might use the PowerPoint presentation. There's a Facebook one. That is the one that I use all the time. Now, you don't need to concern yourself too much with what size it is. That's just for Canva to know. A Facebook cover. If you haven't tackled the Facebook cover yet and you're not quite sure what it is, it's simply the big, long, oblong picture on your business Facebook page or a group. And once you get a little bit savvy with Canva, you could start to create something really amazing for your business. Whatever's there at the moment is good, because done is as good as perfect, but a Facebook cover and Facebook post is one of the things that you'll want to do. We also have lots and lots of other options. Instagram posts, I know that many of you are on Instagram, not many people on Pinterest, Facebook apps. It's, you know, a lot of these are irrelevant. One thing that is not on here, I mean, you can even do your CV on there if that's something for you. One thing that isn't in here in Flyer is Flyer is not the right dimensions. Interestingly, this is an American company, like a lot of them are, and if you wanted to create a flyer for your own business, if you wanted an A4 one, unlikely, A4's A4, but the flyer size there is not actually what we would consider to be a flyer size. We would usually consider something like A5 to be a flyer, and they are slightly different dimensions. So, I mean, I can tell you that it's 148 times 210, but you probably won't remember that very long. So my advice would be, if you get to the stage where you really want to create a flyer, then you'd want to Google what the A5 dimensions are. Now, there is another reason why it's useful to have all of these different options, and that reason is because when you go ahead and click on them, in fact, let me just go ahead and click on Facebook post, and you'll find this will be the case for all of them. Actually, there will be some options designed for your inspiration. There will be some templates already there. So the way that I started out when I was working in Canva and I wanted to get some pictures up on Facebook was looking at these and deciding what was nice and deciding what was pretty, and then just going ahead and doing it. What I've learned on my Canva journey is, although these, well, I've learned two things that I'm going to share with you today. Although these are a super quick way of getting the message up, what I'd like you to consider is just something a little bit more strategic about your brand. Because let's say you wanted 10 days of Facebook posts, just as an example, and you had the fox on one day, this purple thing on another day, then you had the ladybird, you had this one going on. You know, what you would see over the course of those 10 days is there's no cohesion between all of the things that you're posting. There's no commonality. Now, obviously, pictures might be different and the message might be different, and that's all perfectly allowed and okay. What my point would be here is it's a really good idea to create and think about your brand image. And the brand image is much more than having your logo on it, and it's much more than having your website on it. Now, I'm going to need to share another page with you because I'm obviously quite well established with using Canva, and I have a Canva for Work account, which I'll talk to you about later. But I want to show you what you will see when you create a brand in Canva. Okay, so this is another account that I've created. The reason why I've created this account is just because I've got an established presence through my own personal address. Now, when you're in, I mean, I've created this amazing, gorgeous, full of typos thing just to have a little practice. But the point that I want to show you here is you will have, you can see down here, there is a your brand. So you'll want to click on that. Now, if I'm honest, there's not a lot here that you can use that's free, and that's just the way it is. But here are some things that you'll definitely want. You'll definitely want your brand colours. Now, depending on how you have set up your website and approached your business, you might not have thought about what the full spectrum of colours are that you're going to use. It might be, I mean, certainly when I started my business, I had a colour that I used, and I hadn't really thought about what other colours would work with it. And in fact, I didn't even have any use for any colours. The reason why I would suggest to you that it's quite a good idea to create a palette is so that when you're creating multiple Facebook posts or banners, you have different colours to work with, and you want those colours to sit well together. Now, the way you would do that is on the free, i.e. not Canva for Work package, you get one shot of brand colours. You can delete them all and start again if you're not happy with them. I've done that before, but you would just, I'd say in the first instance, look here, it says colour inspiration. So if you click colour inspiration, you're going to be taken to the Canva Design School. Now, the Canva Design School is really good because what it does is it's showing you lots of tips and tricks. There is a whole wealth of information out there, and I get that you're probably thinking I haven't got an entire day to dedicate to it. You can dip in and dip out, but what my suggestion to you would be was one of the very first things that you do before you start doing your 2018 marketing is you get yourself a colour palette. So from the brand colours, you can go to the colour palette tutorials. You can even Google it if you don't like the suggestions here. So when people are putting together a colour palette, really what we're talking about is a selection of colours that work well together. Now, for example, these ones, rich and adventurous, you wouldn't necessarily think these would go together, but they do. So the spirit of putting colours together is, a lot of them take their inspiration from nature. So you can see here, there's a really pretty feminine palette from nature. In fact, when I created my new colours for my website and another website I created, I did take my inspiration from here. In fact, my inspiration was, some of these are gorgeous and work together. Now I will say, you see where it has that little hashtag sign? That's the number. So we've got the name, which is irrelevant for you, but this is the number of the colour. So let's say, we'll come back to this. Well, I'll make a note of 709FB0, but you would choose This is one that I absolutely adore. I've used this for one project that I'm working on. And there's this colour, which is just very pretty. I go off my colour schemes quite often, and it's perfectly okay to just change up your colour scheme. So if you're thinking, if you've got a colour palette already, good. If you haven't, I would get 5 colours that work together. So if you can't find what you want within this inspiration, there is a further tutorial, but I would Google colour palette inspiration, and you're going to get, there's going to be loads of stuff on Pinterest, and particularly, and loads of Google pages and images, and they will give you the codes. Now, they're not necessarily going to be the Canva codes if you're just Googling them, or they're on Pinterest, but it will give you an idea of what goes together. So let's just head back to my brand. So what I would do is I would use the color wheel to choose something. Select that, so then I'd go to the next one. Now, remember we saw those numbers. If you were to create your own color palette and you'd see some of those images that you like, you'd write the number down. So one of the ones that I liked was 709 FB0. So I typed that in, I'd hit return, and that number would come up. So you can just keep going, adding whatever it is that you want. Oh, we've reached the limit of colours. That's a little bit stingy for the free section, but the purpose of this would be, as an exercise, you could go ahead and put 3 colours in there, because when you come to create a design, what you should find, don't worry that I'm going too quickly if you're a bit lost here, because it will be more obvious when we come later and I will show you what's going on in mind. And you see right there, the brand colours come up. Now, if you want to create a palette of 5 colours, what I would suggest is you take a notebook or a piece of paper that you can display prominently. I would write down what the numbers of those colours are. These can be, these 3 that are your brand colours, they can be the most common ones you use. There will always be a few that you use more than others. You can then click, and exactly as we did before, you can add in the number of what you want. Now, the unfortunate thing is, if you're doing that and it's not saved as a colour, you're going to have to put it in every time. But really, it's not a biggie. So I would say, that would be absolutely fine. Let's go back to brand. Now, in the interest of, that's basically all you can do in the free version. The paid version is something like £10 a month. You would decide for yourself whether you think you're going to do enough design to make it worth spending. I think it's $12.75, whatever the conversion rate is for that. But it makes it easier to pull your brand together. That's simply because you'll have listed your brand colours, but also it gives you an option to decide what your fonts are. What I was doing at the beginning with all the picking this and picking that, and that's a nice picture, oh, that's a lovely font, I was just getting a complete mishmash of colours and fonts, and there was no cohesion about what I was saying. So you can post any picture at all, but if you're keeping the sizes and at least the font types the same and consistent across all your posts, and you're using similar colours from your palette of 5 colours, then your posts are going to look generally a lot more pulled together. So that would be my suggestion for you there. We will go ahead to look now at my screen. So let's just have a quick tour of the basics. I will show you, for the purposes of what we're doing, how to create a Facebook post. I'm going to do it based on my brand colours. Now, I'm not going to use any of these templates because they kind of don't go with what I want to say. So I'm going to start with, let me show you how to upload a photograph. You'll see in my uploads, I've got all kinds of things that I've uploaded. Now, once you upload a photograph, it stays here. So this is your library. So I've used pictures of me, and I can use those whenever I want. In fact, I've no idea whether there's any limit on how much space you can have or how many images you can have, but what I can tell you is I haven't reached it yet. So I could, if I wanted to, I could put an image. I'll show you what to do with those later, but I'm not going to. So if I wanted to have an existing image, I just click on it, or I could drag it in. Either way, it appears and you can just position it as you want. We'll do a little bit more on positioning, but I'm going to show you how to upload. So you can upload your own images, and what it does by clicking on that button is it brings up your desktop, and you would then go and choose a file from your desktop. Now I've got a picture called, I've got a pictures box, so I would just go ahead and click that. I might double click, and can you see down here it's uploading the thing that I've double clicked. It's really that simple. I'll just go and show you another one while that's uploading. Click to upload. It brings up my desktop. It's brought up the folder that I want it to come from. I might also have that one. So it's uploading. You can see just here on the very far left, the up arrow. And once the blue liquid fills to the top, your image is then saved. So both of those images that I've saved are now in and can be used. So I'm going to go ahead and click, and it's put the image in the Facebook post. Now what you'll see there is this white part is the size of the Facebook post. So what I want to do is I'm going to want to stretch the picture so it fills all of that white space. Now, you don't have to be a mathematician to see that these are actually two different shapes. One is pretty much a kind of square, and the other one is a bit more rectangular. So I'm not going to be able to get it exactly to where I want. What I could do, if I wanted to, is I could flip it so it goes the other way around. I could flip it so it's upside down if it doesn't suit me. So you can have a little play around with that. So there it is, back to normal. So I'm just going to go ahead and stretch, stretch, stretch. Stretch, 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 because I'm going to want it. I'm going to make sure, oh look, it's not quite done it there. I'm going to want to make sure that it absolutely fits where it's going. And once I get, can you see just at the bottom, there's that funny cross tool. That, like most applications, whether you're in PowerPoint or whatever, that is a symbol that you can move it. So I could choose to move the image around. I could make it much, much bigger if I wanted to. I could make it huge and then only focus on the lemons. That's quite useful, but I'm going to get it so it's where I want it. My concern with an image like this, and it's just because I'm a bit freaky about things like this, that if I have it, you know, people might think I've no idea what that is. So we want it to be clear that it's a honey stick or whatever you call it, just making sure that I haven't got any of the white image there. So there's the image. We could go to filter, and you could choose one of these built-in filters, which you can see appearing differently as I click. Now, what I will say about filters, because this is particularly important on Instagram, if there's anyone who is using Instagram, if you go onto somebody's profile page, you will see that you see a wall of, you know, images 333, you know, all the way down. So the images that you use sit next to each other, and it's really, really obvious if they're not sitting together well. If you think of Instagram, it's a bit like your online magazine that people can flip through. So in that instance, it is absolutely critical that you're using the same fonts and you're using similar filters. So you'd be choosing images with a similar feel. So you wouldn't have all of them being festive and bright and quite saturated, and suddenly a couple of random pictures that have very much more of a muted feel. Now, it's key for Instagram. It's not so much of a problem for Facebook because people aren't seeing them side by side all the time. they can do, but they need to press a few more buttons to be able to do that. So we will choose, what do I like? I like festive. Now intensity, let's see what happens when we play around with intensity. Just makes it more of the same. If we keep an eye on the lemons, you can see things are happening to the contrast and brightness. If we go back to the middle, that's where we started. And we can just change the intensity. To be honest, I sometimes change the filter, but I rarely mess around with the intensity. There are advanced options. You can start playing around with blurring things and having little vignettes, which you're not sure what that is. It's does little funny blurry things to the sides. You could mess around with the saturation, which is basically making it richer and orangier and yellowier. So you could do that if you wanted to. I don't think really you're going to need to do that. So we'll just leave it as it is. We'll go back. Now we might decide that this is going to be a Facebook post, and it's going to be a Facebook post, which is, let's say we've got something in the February information for you on the website, which is about immunity. And you might say, I am going to write something on Facebook about drinking honey and lemon. So I've got my honey and lemon picture. And now what I want to do is I want to add my name of my website. So how you would do that, there's two ways I'd suggest that you do that. One is, actually this is quite dark, so you could just go ahead and write it in white. So let's have a go at that. I'm going to press text. We'll have a look at some of these later on because these are quite good. If you're not bothered about templates and palettes and things like that, I think you should be, but if you're not bothered, or maybe you're doing something just for your personal use, there are lots of different font arrangements listed here. But because we'll have done the work already and we want to put our own fonts in, then we're just going to go to add. It kind of doesn't matter whether you do heading, subheading or body text. In Canva for Work, it allows you to decide what is the font and size of the heading, what is the font and size of the subheading, and what is the font and size of the body text. You can do that for yourself, but you'll need it written down. So remember I was saying before, write down the names and numbers of the colours that you want to use. I'd also go ahead and decide what the names and font sizes are that you want to use on your palette. So here I've already added mine. I know that my heading is going to be Lato. I can change the colour, which I'll do in a minute. I know that the subheading is Trocchi, so I could just drag that to where I want it to be. Have it over there for the sake of argument. I'll go back to text, and I might want a little bit of body text. Actually, what I tend to use a little bit of body text for is for having my logo. Now, I like to have a logo pretty much in the center. So you can see I'm moving it around, and the vertical line is showing me what it's lining up with. So right here, I'm getting the line to show that it's lined up with the heading, but really I want it to be in the middle. So I'm just going to drag, drag, drag until I get the middle line. Now, I can highlight what's in there, and I want to add my web address. Now, I have no idea what that is because I can't see it. So I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to head up to the top. Now, where you see the colour, this is the colour palette. Now, it's obviously too dark there, so I need to make it lighter. You can see here, because I've got Canva for Work, this is what you would see if you had your own palettes. I've got my Food Fabulous palettes. I've got another project that I'm working on. I've also got some other things that I played around with based on what I saw. You might recognize some of these colors based on what I saw in the color inspiration. And you get the default palette anyway, which are the scariest colors known to man, and you get this monochrome. So you're going to have your 3 colors that are in your brand, your default 2, And then if you do sign up for Canva for Work, try it free to start with. You're going to see all your different brand colours here. So I might decide, in fact, I know that this sort of bluey colour is often what I write in. Oh, I can see there that, so let's change that. Let's click back in here. I can see already that that doesn't work. Right, what I want to tell you about this while I think about it is we will see when we download, or you may have already heard, that there is a possibility to add a web link into that, like a hyperlink into something like foodfabulous.co.uk. Well, here's the bad news. You can only do it in a PDF. So if you were to decide that you were going to produce a ebook for the sake of argument, you would be able to have links, so you can add links, but they don't work. Here, look, you could add a link there. If you were doing an ebook or something like that where you would want people to click to various places, you'd add the link, but it doesn't work in photographs. So no matter, I would say for you, always have your web address or your group, in fact your web address, on the bottom of your Facebook posts. Now, the other way of doing it might be, you can see as it's quite a dark picture, I can just go ahead and write it in white. Let's pretend that hasn't happened. The other thing that can happen, I've just deleted that there, I've clicked on it and I've literally pressed the back button, is I might put it in a little box. So I would go to Elements. Now elements, there are loads of different things in elements. We'll look at elements in a little while. I'm just going to create this Facebook post for you. But there's all sorts of things here, from icons and pictures and illustrations and different frames, and it's really fun to play around with it. So I would go to shapes. You can see there are lots and lots of different shapes. Now some of them have got free on, most of them are free. I will have a word later when I talk about images, because free doesn't always mean free in Canva, which is a little bit annoying, but there we go. So I could have, I just like to keep it simple. So I just want a little oblong. I'm going to create a square. Clearly, I don't want it in that colour. I'm not quite sure how I've created that. So right away, I'm going to change it to that colour. I'm going to just drag the dots, so I make it quite small, move it to where I want it on the page. I will go into text, because I know I'm going to want some writing in there. I'll have my little body bit of text, and it always adds it where it adds it. So you need to sort of chase it down. Look, it's over there. I'm going to drag it so it's in the middle. I'm going to line it up just using my mouse, or my trackpad in this case, and I'm going to put foodfabulous.co.uk. Now, I'm looking at this thinking, actually, that's very large. I'm going to use the arrows just to shrink that. I'm going to use the arrows just to shrink that. Come off just to see it's the right size. Go back on because I've gone a bit wrong. There we go. So that's about the right size. Now, this is something that's quite useful. I tend to, oh, that's a little bit wonky on that side. I would tend to think, well, I want my website to be visible, but what I don't want is it to be really in your face. And I feel that it's just drawing away a little bit from the photograph. So I can mess around with the transparency. Now, if you've ever done any art things, if you've ever been in a design program before, transparency quite literally means the degree to which you can see through it. So at the moment, I can't see through that at all. So that is not transparent. But if I clicked on it and I go up here to this funny little thing that looks like a Grand Prix starters flag, it actually says transparency. So I can click on that. So it's on at 100%, which basically means the transparency is set to 0. Transparency would be 100%. If it was there, the thing's gone. If it's here, it's really jumping out at you. So you can either click on it or drag it, whatever you like, just to see, can you see that if we move it, it's getting, that little box is getting ever so slightly more transparent as we go along. So what we're looking for is we're just looking for it to be a little bit more visible than it currently is. So I think 50% visibility. What I did there from being in here is I just clicked off. And sometimes you just need to click off so you can see what's going on. So right there, I've just made it feel a little bit more part of the picture because we can see bits through it. So in your Facebook post, I'm going to get rid of that because what I might have is, what I tend to do is I save the goodies for the actual post, and I would just have a picture that says something like, I'm going to call this Healing Lemon and Honey. Now, I know that I have got a couple of different fonts that I like to use that I blend together. Actually, I haven't popped them for reasons I can't explain to you, but I just haven't in my branding yet. But I know that they are Lato, which is what you're seeing there, and Sacramento. Now, I want to have in Sacramento, don't want it in uppercase, I want to have Healing. I'm going to call it Healing, Honey and Lemon. Well, that's in the wrong colour for me, so I'm going to go ahead. I could choose, I can mess around with the colours. I can choose that, can't see it, that's a bad choice. Highlight it all again. If I put it in blue, can't really see that so well. So you can just play around to see what actually looks nice. There is no right or wrong answer, by the way. It's just, you know, sometimes one of your brand colours may or may not be visible. It might be that I have to go and borrow another colour from somewhere else. And I've got all kinds of things I could borrow from various different places. So I might decide, actually, that's quite nice. As long as it sits on this light colour, and I can shift it along to make sure that it is going to, I'm happy to go ahead using that. And it's a colour that, although it's not officially one of my brand colours, it's not a million miles away, and it goes really nicely with some of the colours in here. Now, I can change the size here. It's currently in 42 point. And this is where you'll find the fonts. So there are loads of, so there are my brand fonts. Unless you're on the paid for version, you won't get those, but I really don't think it's a biggie. I would invite you on a blank page just to play around with the fonts. So there we go, we can see lots of different fonts. I am going to go to Sacramento. Now, I know Sacramento comes out quite small, so I'm going to increase the size of it to 80. And I'm just going to reposition it because it's now a little bit off where I want it to be. So I'm happy for it to sit there, but it was getting all caught up with the top of the jar. I now know I want to have a subheading. So it's given me something here. It's just given it to me in whatever I, you know, whatever I've got. I'm going to line it up. I'm looking for, I'm moving. Can you see those arrows, those little dotted line on the left? So I'm probably going to want to go in the same colour, which was this one. I'm going to want it to be, I'm going to highlight it again. I'm going to want it to be in Lato. And I might want it to be bigger. Thanks ever so much. And I'm going to put lemon and honey. So I'll just hit that down. Right, okay, I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, and I'm going to show you something in a minute. Now, for some people, I know there is a designer listening, and she will appreciate this. Actually, I'm going to have it centered. What I'm going to do here is, if we click off here, it's all right, but it's, what I want the letters to do is just sit together a little bit nicely. So I'm just going to move them so they're slightly more knitted together. You can just move the box. Now I'm going to go into lemon and honey, and I'm going to highlight that text, because for me, Canva sets it up how it sets it up, and that's all good. But actually the spacing is a bit wrong for me. So I've highlighted it, and now I'm going to go into spacing. And I'm going to, I could squish up the letters if I want. I could muck around with the line height, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to move, and can you see as I click, something happens to the text. It just gets squished up together. So I want to come off. So that sits together a little bit better, and you can just play around with it so nothing is sitting on top of each other. Right, now other things that I could do. I've got unsaved changes. You can see up here, unsaved changes. I'm going to go ahead and save it, all changes saved. I could make it bold, I could make it italic. Here, this is a pretty universal thing for the alignment, and that will align it in the box. This would change it to uppercase. This would add bullets if you wanted it to. Now, one of the things that I was going to show you later on, I will show you here, is, actually, let me just download this to start with. So I'm going to download it. Now, you have some options. You have an option of PNG, you have an option of PDF, you have an option of a GIF or movie, which they're just testing at the moment, and you have an option of PDF print. Now, JPEG is a picture file. If you are going to be using MailChimp and you want to save a picture that you can send in MailChimp, you're going to want to save it as a JPEG. PNG, I've no idea, because my knowledge isn't enough, why PNG is recommended, but you can use that and upload it as an image to Facebook, so that's absolutely fine. I'm going to say something about the other file types as well. If you have PDF print, what does that mean? Well, let's just pretend that this Facebook page is actually some kind of ebook that I've created for myself. I know most of you will be using the Zest ones, but if you haven't, or you're creating a leaflet, let's say you're going to create a leaflet, and I know because I fell foul of this before, I'm sure they have only just introduced this. Let's pretend it's a leaflet. I've clicked print, and now, and I swear this wasn't in the other week when I had to redesign the whole thing, which was deeply irritating, crop, marks and bleed. So that basically, when you send something to the printers and they are going to print, let's say for the sake of it, they're going to print this post or this picture, there will always be a bit around the edge that bleeds off the page. Because if I just gave them this, it'll be all kind of white bits around the outside. So if you click crop marks and bleed, it will save it with the crop marks and bleed in a way that you will be able to print it. But for the purposes of now, we're just going to save it as a PNG because that's what it's saying. Don't worry about transparent background. I'm going to show you something in a second that will make that make sense. And you just click download. It's preparing the design, and it's going to pop it up and just save it on your desktop. I sometimes find, in fact, I mostly find that it calls them weird names, but you can go in to Canva and rename it. So I'm going to show you how in a minute. Right, while it's doing that, we're going to go into, if I click into Canva, it will show me all my files. So look, it's creating this strange thing here. It will let me edit it. It will let me change the name. Here's something else I want to show you as well. So sometimes you might want to do different versions of something. Sometimes you might not quite know which version you like, but you don't want to keep repeating the elements again. So if I know that I absolutely want my words here and my logo there, but I want to play around with different pictures without having to swap it in and swap it out all the time, I could click this button here and I could create an identical page. And having done that, I could click in the picture, delete it. I could go to my uploads and find something else suitable to put in. So I might decide then I'm going to have that picture, thank you very much. And then I would do exactly the same as before, stretch, 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 get it to fill, position it on the page, let's see if I can move it around. Now, it is possible, and I know this because I've done it before, sometimes when I've done this, I've put it on, and actually what it's done is it's put the picture on top of my words, which isn't very nice. So there are ways and means of doing this. Transparency, we don't want to be doing that. Let's say, so you might find if it's done that, and I'm just going to show you if it had done that, this is what you do. You would go to more and you would hit arrange. And you can then either bring the things forward or send them back. So if the image had been plonked over the top of my words such that I couldn't see them anymore, I would click more and it would be available for me to hit back. So that is how you design a Facebook post. So elements are trying to choose the same font, or similar fonts and similar sizes, similar colours every time, just to create some cohesion. You would also be able to, let me just show you how to do this. So let's say you wanted to create between you, let's say you wanted to buddy up and you wanted to create Facebook posts and share them, or you had something amazing that you wanted to share. This is a relatively new unpaid feature. You could go into share, you could type an email address of somebody who can edit, or if you click down, just view the file that you're sending. So if you're working collaboratively with somebody, they would be able to, they would get a link that they can go into Canva and they can open up their page. Now the benefit for them, and this is new actually, because a few associates had asked me for a leaflet and I couldn't share the design with them such that they would be able to edit it. But now you can. You can also, which I haven't tested, you can also share to social media. I would suggest for now that once you download your image, you just drag it, copy and paste it into Facebook as normal. You could also give a link to someone. So this would be the link that I could send to whomsoever I please, that they would be able to access and edit or not the image that I've just created. So that's super useful if you've created something and you want to share it with somebody. And it's certainly something that I will be doing if I've created a flyer, for example, in Canva that I think works. I'd be able to share that with somebody else. What else can we do from the Facebook post? You can publish it as a template if you want it to be. It would be then your template. What else do we want to do? Now here's one of these things. I'm going to leave the page. In our designs, there is, let's say, now this is a paid function. You can get, I have got the paid function, but here's what might be useful for you. Let's say you had the Facebook page and you decided you wanted it to be, actually with Instagram, it's pretty much going to be fine. But let's say you wanted to make a different size out of that for reasons known only to yourself. You wanted to make this particular picture A4. If you put resize in, what you will see as an unpaid Canva person is you would see that you could have an option of magically resizing to something else. So literally what you do is you would click on something else that you want. Abracadabra, resize. Now that is only available to Canva for work people, and to be honest, £10 a month is pretty steep just for not having to do it again. But you do get a 30-day free trial with Canva for work. So if you wanted to ever do that, then that would be an option. Right, let us look also at Facebook cover. Now, what I want to tell you about Facebook cover is Facebook cover, I'm going to leave you to do the maths, but if you were to create a new Facebook cover, which you may be inspired to do, there's something strange that goes on, because I found that the resolution for creating a banner isn't actually that good. So it's the right size, and it's really important to get it the right size for Facebook, because otherwise you're going to have bits clipped off and it's going to look rubbish. But here's the thing. If you've got an image that's going across the top and then you're going to put your writing on, what I found when I've done this is that it comes up a little bit fuzzy. So you are going to want to make it double the size. So we're still keeping the same proportions, but you would do 2 times 828. I'm not going to do that. And you would do 2 times 315. You would, instead of clicking Facebook cover, you would go into use custom dimensions, and you would put in what those dimensions are. So what do we say? 315, actually I said I wasn't going to do the maths and show myself up. 315 would be 630, and 828 would be, I'm just going to pretend it's 1,600 just to give myself the easy job, and design. And it gives you exactly the shape that you're expected to fill. And this is really useful because then you know exactly what you're dealing with. Now, here are all the different things you can have. If you are doing your own page for your business page, you might just have something really simple behind, or you might have a bank of different images, which can be really striking. So I invite you to have a little play around. I've often talked about free photo resources. One of my, Pixabee's free. One of my favourite ones is unsplash.com at the moment. I think they've got really beautiful high-res images. I want to draw your attention to something like this. I wonder whether you can, no, you can't do that. Let's get rid of that. You could, one of the things that I want to show you how to do, you can, any of these are pre-arranged. So let's just say, this is showing a picture with a split in it. So you could go to upload a picture exactly as I've said, and just drag a picture in, and it's going to put it in those frames it's created for you. Now you might find that you don't want that whole picture of the pancake, so you click on the image, and what it's doing here is it's inviting you to crop it. So you could just move it about, could decide what you needed, and then you hit the accept or not accept. I've accepted it. So it's the same, exactly the same thing. You can just move it about. It might be that you want to stretch it and zoom in or zoom out. So you could go ahead and create a banner with as many different images as you like. I'm going to show you what I've done for one of my banners. Now it's not up at the moment. You'll see some of the marketing materials that I was creating. Okay, where is... Okay, I'm going to show you this one. So one of the things I spoke about at the Business Development Day, and you might well see this on the webinar, is how to make use of your Facebook page banner to get it to do something extra. And this was in the context of how to use a lead magnet. Now, I'm just putting together some more advice on how to deliver a lead magnet using MailChimp, but this is what I created for my banner. I created a pretty picture, and then I created a box with something about my lead magnet in. I've created these for various different things, for different pages I've run. I've also created one for my group. So the message would be the same. The format would be the same. It would be a picture. And in fact, let me just create one for you. So ignore what I've said about Facebook covers. Let's just pretend this is good enough. And it's mainly so that I don't have to do the maths again, just so you know. So I could say, okay, I'm going to want a picture. I'm going to make it, what do I do? I'm going to make it a little Christmassy one. Father Christmas, I'm going to stretch Father Christmas, stretch him, stretch him, stretch him. Ho, 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 there he is. He's not quite big enough there. There we are. So I might say I want to go all Christmassy. You might feel inspired to do the same. So I've got my picture. I'm going to go to elements. I'm going to go to shapes. And I'm going to get that box and I'm going to put it here. Gee, that's not a disastrous colour for that, but really it would be good if it fitted with one of the other colours, just because that's a slightly better design thing. That's not quite the same, but it's near enough. Can I make it very similar? Can I make it similar? Well, that's good enough. Okay, so I've got a box like that. This is what it looks like. And I might have a little message that could say, let's say, almost doesn't matter what size it is, but that's massive. So I will take the size down smaller. I'm going to move it over onto my box. I'm just going to adjust the text box width because I'm going to end up writing too big in there. Just the width. Move it to where I want it to be, which is not quite on top of there. You can see with the line it's in the middle. I'm going to give it a colour. And then I'm going to write some stuff that might be, what might we say? We might say 10 ways to survive Christmas without the weight gain. I'm going to make that smaller because that's just going to be gigantic. And then I might have, I'm going to show you some elements as well with shapes. I might have a circle. So that's automatically and slightly annoyingly putting it into this funny green colour. I'm going to use the arrow to just scale it down to an appropriate size. Line it up in the middle. Now, these colours here are what they've given me. I don't like either of them. I'm going to decide that I want that outer circle to be red. There we go, make it a nice Christmassy red. Click out, it's made it red. This colour I might have as, let's click there. I know that I've got a sort of a beigey colour somewhere, but let's pretend I'm going to have it beige. This is the intensity, so that would be super dark. That'd be very light. We're going to have it this sort of mushroomy colour. And I'm going to write something in here because what I want to go in here is I want to have a download button. So I'm just going to put a little bit of body text in. It's going to be far too big, but we'll worry about that later. So I'm going to say, click here. Now I'm going to say something a bit less long than that. I'm going to say free ebook. Click here. Actually, that's not a bad size, but you know, I can play around with exactly how I want it to look. I can play around with the font. It's not exactly the font that I'd like, but for the purposes of what we're doing here, done is as good as perfect. So you can see that, well, that's a bit ugly, I'm sorry, I can't leave it like that. Okay, so that's good enough. So this could be a banner. Now, who knows what happens to banners? What would happen on banners is what happens when people click. Well, when people click, literally what happens is the comments box comes up. So let's say you wanted to deliver a lead magnet using MailChimp, you wanted to deliver some information, get people's email address for the information, which might be surviving Christmas without the weight gain. You could do something for healthy Christmas recipes. This could be your banner, made just really simply, click here, and all that would happen is the comments box would pop up and you would say, again, the same thing. It is a bit of a swizz, but you know, bad luck. Here is, I've got an amazing guide to surviving Christmas without the weight gain. Download it by clicking this link. And then you would have the opportunity for putting a link in. I can see someone's asked me a question. Harriet has asked, where do you get your photos from? I might have already answered this. So Unsplash, this little Santa chap, Santa came from Unsplash. I've got lots and lots. I used to have a membership which was quite cheap with graphic stock. I don't now, because simply a lot of the free images are so good now, and if you can give them a credit, then that's great. So this is what I would do with the banner. I'll just save that for the sake of it. There's another thing that you can go in to do here, which might be of interest to some of you if you're starting out. Now, there is something for a logo. There is, in Canva, there is a design school. So that's called designschool.canva.com. Now, that will give you loads and loads of tips for doing all kinds of things, but there is some guidance on creating a logo. In fact, I can't even see logo just right here. It's probably my eyes, but, there we go. It will give you some inspiration. Some of these things are free. You can go ahead and steal them. What my advice would be on logos is that you can really overthink it. And I know this because I hear from associates that are just starting out, and I did exactly the same myself. I spent ages and ages thinking up a logo, and I now don't use it anymore. I now just use fonts. So that was a waste of money. But in fact, we're going to do this because I'm going to show you something else. Aha, right, okay, well, we will use this. Now, let's say that I created something for myself using the text and various other bits and pieces. I will show you elements in a second. But let's say this was my logo. Now, if I just download this as a PNG or I download it as a JPEG, what's going to happen is I'm going to get this logo and get all this white stuff around it. And there's going to be times when that will be fine. And there's also going to be times when actually what I want is I just want to put this circly thing onto stuff. So here's how you would then download it. You would click to download and you would click transparent background. So what that's going to do is it's going to give you the text, but it's going to save it without any background on. And that's what you'd want for a logo. Now, there is some advice. If you haven't got a logo yourself, I would just create one as a, as a font, or I would take something from here and maybe consider not spending the money. It's very easy to overthink things. Now, other things that you could do in here, you could do a flyer. I have gone over time already, for which I am sorry, but I'm just going to keep talking until I'm carried out. Now, I'm going to show you a flyer. This was created in, we have another question here. So Antonia's going, I'll speak to you soon. Sorry, I'm overrunning. You're very welcome to stay. Okay, so this was created, I make my leaflets in Canva, and this is created just from text box, different text box. This is just a shape that I've stretched across, different color text and different images. Now, one of the things that's really, really helpful in creating a leaflet, because it is quite a lot more complicated, you're definitely going to want to make use of these buttons where you make duplicate pages and you add in pictures so you can see different colors and different types of things, so it gives you a little bit more space to create what you actually love without having to go back to the drawing board all the time. I want to additionally show you very quickly, we want to leave that page. What do I want to show you very quickly? I will just go in and create a Facebook post, just because it doesn't really matter what it is, but I also want to show you some of these elements. Now Canva does have some free stuff. Canva definitely has some free elements that you can use. Let me show you what those are. Various different grids. Now remember, these are all places that you can put photographs, so you can play around and create some really amazing designs. You can have things in frames, so you can have lots and lots of fun with your designs. If I'm honest, I haven't used most of this functionality. I've sort of played around with it. We've also got illustrations. So these are things that are used in a lot of the free stuff. You can have lollies and, you know, all sorts of bits of food. It does take a while to load some of them. Now, some of the things, I'm just going to click until I get something. Some of the things, it's a little bit naughty. Right, there we go. I'm going to download the lolly because I know this is free. Some of the things when it comes to images, let's see, free photos. And it's probably, oh, there are icons as well, which are basically the same as the illustrations, but just not filled in. Now, some things, let me show you. I had, okay, so let's put arrow. And I know I had this experience, arrow, and when I've tried to, let's say, save it, download it, oh, it's going to let me do that. Oh, it is letting me do that, right. Some of these things you will notice, let's get rid of that. I want to show you some of the things that happen. Right, let's see whether it will let me do that. Sometimes it will say it's free and you'll go to download. Oh, it's doing that as well. It's making me a liar. Yes, so some of the things you'll see already, it's going to cost you some money to use, and you can decide for yourself whether you want to do that, whether you don't want to do it. But my experience is sometimes you'll see something, aha, this is what I want to show you. Okay, can you see it says free? And you might be thinking, aha, it's free, as does this one, it's free. If you look very closely, you can see there's a little checkerboard background. What's most likely to happen with that is, although it looks free, I promise you this is the case. You will find this out for yourself. But often it might say it's free, and then you'll see a little checkerboard background where you'll think it's free, you'll use it, and it happened to me this morning. You go to save it, and then what happens is it will suddenly decide it's not free after all. It is very annoying. Unfortunately, it's giving the lie to what I'm telling you, but it is actually the case. So I've talked to you about duplicating pages, deleting, moving things, downloading and publishing, and the dimensions. I'm just wondering what else there is that anybody wants to know about Canva. If there's something that you've been struggling with, because I think I probably have done covered a lot of the things that you will need, because mostly what you're going to be needing is Facebook posts and how to do those. So that would be literally choosing your fonts, choosing a color palette, and making sure you've got your web address added on. You can go in fact, let me just show you this. So if I go into Canva, if I go into the Canva logo, it just takes me back to where I am. So you can go into, let's say you wanted to do something that was, let's say you'd created something. Okay, so here we go. Oops. Let's say you had created a Facebook post. Look, here we go. I was doing a Facebook post. Maybe I want to have something that's similar to that, but I don't want to actually change that and lose it. I could say make a copy, and it's just going to duplicate it. I obviously don't want it to be called the same thing, so I'm going to hover over it, and I'm going to have this little pencil, and I could call it Facebook Live. And then I could go in and I could just make a change, and that would be that. So that is how you would copy it. I can see there's another question. In the share folder, what's the difference between people and the link? Okay, good question, Stephanie. Okay, so the link is something that you would just send to some people. So let's say I was going to put out to a Zest group, what does everyone think of this template? And I would post a link to the template, and you'd all be able to go in and have your own opinion and maybe make some changes if I'd given you the ability to make changes. It would just be a direct link that I might be able to use in an email. Very similar, if I was just sharing with you, Stephanie, I could either choose to send you the link, or I could just get them to email you. It's effectively the link. it makes absolutely no difference, to be honest. It just is a quicker way to email people. Now, it seems to be, because this used to be a paid function, it was only in looking at it today that I could see that they'd actually made this a free function. It looks like you can have 10 people in your team free. So what that would mean to me is you could perhaps work with 10 associates and you could all develop a big pool of sharing. And the 11th associate, well, bad luck, they don't get to come and play. That would be what my understanding is. I must say I haven't actually tested it, but I am excited about this, because sometimes when I'm working with associates and I want to say, oh, just use this as a template, and I want to give them access to something that they would be able to change. So in that case, if you wanted to give someone access to something that they could change, but you wanted to keep the copy for yourself, my suggestion would be you would, just as I've done a second ago, I would create a copy of what it was, and I'd maybe call it, let's say this copy that I've created, I would call it maybe Stephanie's copy. I would either share the link or I would invite you to be able to link up with that, and you would be able to just make a change and download that for yourself. So that's how I would share. Let's say that you were working with another associate and you were both creating a download your Christmas marvelousness Facebook banner. You could create different designs, you could create one each, and you could share with each other. But I would make a copy of it so that, Stephanie, you don't find that Claire goes in and mucks up your design and then you're very upset. Claire is asking, why do you make the Facebook banner double size? So that's a really good question. Now, what happens is, for some reason, and I don't know why this is, for some reason, when you make it the Facebook banner size, I don't find that the resolution comes out well enough. So the Facebook banner, in doubling the size, means you keep the proportions, but you then just make it that much bigger. So it means that everything is being saved bigger. So for when Facebook squishes it back into Facebook banner size, I find the resolution looks better on photographs. In fact, what I was finding, it was the writing, not so much the photo, but the writing was coming out a little bit fuzzy. I've posted this in Facebook groups that I'm in, and that was a suggestion that came back from some design people who would know. What did I mean when I said you can publish it as a template? Well, you can create something as a template. What I tend to do, I mean, that goes in and out of being a paid function. What I would do, Claire, is if you want, so for example, I would create something as a file that I just called a template, and then I just recreated a copy. So exactly as I just did with that post, whatever it was called, Food Fabulous, and then I just created a copy and I renamed the copy. That's what I would do as a template. I think that's the easiest way to do. That's the way I do it. And how do you make a branded banner that you can save and is ready to use every time without having to create it every time? So I'm going to have to ask you to clarify what you mean about that, Claire. So let me just go into the files just so we can have a little reminder. Now, this is my little Christmas excitement. This, in theory, could be a branded banner. So I could know, for example, and just let me know whether this helps you at all. I could decide in here, in my picture, I'm going to want to have a shape. I could say, okay, I'm going to have a shape. I'm going to have my logo. So I'm going to create that funny square thing. I'm going to make it transparent a little bit. I'm going to import some text. A bit of body text, there we are. Let's just pretend, for the sake of time, that that is my website. I'm going to drag this over. So let's pretend it's central. Don't know whether it is, but let's just imagine it is exactly where we want it to be. I won't do it just for the sake of time because I am conscious that I have kept you longer than I said I would, so sorry about that. So I would click there. I'm going to want to make it a little bit transparent as we did before. Briefly, I'm going to just make it like that. So I would then know that I have my image, I have my website, and I have whatever I want to do with a click here to whatever I want. Now I can change that at absolutely any time. So if I want to make that a different picture, I can just click that picture and get rid of it. I would be going in and saving a copy just in case I ever want Father Christmas again. And I could go in and say, you know, I'm going to have that. Let's have the celeriac, because the celeriac is now really important to have on my banner. And let's just pretend that is everything I want in a banner. I can see you've answered the question. If I want a banner that has my logo and website on it, can I create one and save it and just copy it? Yes, you can. Absolutely, just copy it and rename it. So I would create something, yeah, very much exactly like this. You have a space for your picture. You maybe have, you know, either the banner is a beautiful banner and you can change pictures in and out. I would also be tempted, just while you're in the design mood, to create something a little bit like this, that has a picture, has your space for your website and a click here. It is a bit of a swizzy way of getting people to click, but you know, there you go. Use what you can. So Deepa has said, how do you post so that it only goes on your business page and not on your personal page? You've had trouble with this. Okay, so I've not used, disclosure, I've not used this new feature in Canva. What I would do is I would just download the picture, the Facebook picture I would download to your computer. Then I would go onto your business page in Facebook and I would just import the picture from there. So literally go into your business page, create a post and drag it in. Write whatever you want to write. You've got the picture there, and then either schedule it or just go live with it immediately. I wonder whether what you're asking Deepa is, how do you do it once you've signed up in Canva, publishing directly from Canva? I've not done that. I think it's a relatively recent invention. I might have a little play around with it, but I'm happy just to download to my desktop, because whenever I download the picture anyway, I can use it in, you know, whatever I want. It might be also, let's go back to what else you might be using. We've talked a lot about marketing materials and newsletters and things like that. So really, if you're creating something for a newsletter, I'm just super lazy. I create most things as a Facebook post and then it's in the dimensions. I can use it if I want to in a newsletter, even though it says Facebook post, that's absolutely fine. Right, who else? So Leanne, brilliant. I can't wait for you to get started. And Claire, again, that's fine. If you want to use the button option, how do you set up the link on the other side? Okay, so literally what you're doing, so this is going back to this Christmas business. So what you would do is you would download our lovely celeriac picture or Father Christmas or whatever we've got. You would go in and upload it as a banner. So you've changed the banner and you literally have the picture. Click for yourself on the banner and it will bring up a comments box. And that's literally the mechanism of action. So anyone who clicks on the banner, because you're saying click here, it will bring up the comments box. So what you will then do is you will add some information in the comments box. So you could have a look at my Facebook page, Food Fabulous, and I think it might be up as Food Fabulous Nutrition, and you would be able to, in fact, let me see whether I can bring that up now just to show you. So let me add it here. I will just show you live what's going on. If you can't see it right now, I'm not quite sure whether you can see this, but I will go into my page and just ensure that it is being saved. Right, stop share. Let me just make sure that I am indeed sharing the right screen. That's what we want to do, share this one. Okay. So now I have, as you can see, I've got a banner and I've got a click here. This is what happens. So actually I can change to click the cover. If you click, literally what happens is it brings up the comments box. It brings up this box. You see where those dots are just there? You could click there and you can, you know, write stuff in it. Edit, you would just write things in there. So I've got then a link to my group. So if you were saying click here to download your free ebook, this is where you'd put it. I've also got visit my blog, so I've got a link back to my website. I've also got a free ebook. I've got it all going on there. So that's what you would do in there. And I think we've got to the end of where I want to get you to with Canva. You can seriously have a lot of fun and lose many, many hours playing around with it. But when this gets loaded up to the website, and also if you're watching on the replay, you can just go ahead and just scroll to the bits that you're going to need. The things that are going to be most useful for you are going to be the Facebook posts. And just once you get in the habit of you've created your color palette, you know what fonts you're going to be using and roughly what colors, and you've created a template that's got your web address on, you're kind of good to go for most things. We're obviously providing a lot of content for you, but this will enable you to literally within 5 minutes be able to create, edit and download content. If you have any questions, you're very welcome to ask them in the Zest for Life Facebook group. And thank you so much for joining me today.